I want to do this problem about two proportions and a hypothesis test because it wants us to do a hypothesis test and also construct an appropriate confidence interval. So it says, what does it say? That 236 of 2197 cars only had rear license plates, and 57 of 391 trucks only had rear license plates. I guess you're supposed to have front and rear. So the hypothesis is that truck owners violate the laws requiring front license plates at a higher rate than owners of passenger cars. Test it with a 0.05 hypothesis level. So it says that population 1 are the passenger cars and population 2 are the commercial trucks. So if the commercial trucks are violating the laws more often, then the population 1 will be less than population 2 is the claim here. So I'm going to write down the claim. So here's this other tablet. So I'm going to say that the claim is that P1 is less than P2. The opposite of this claim is that P1 is greater than or equal to P2, which means that the null hypothesis is P1 equals P2, and that's not from the original claim, not original. And the alternate hypothesis, H1, is that P1 is less than P2, which makes for a left tail test. Okay, so there's the null hypothesis is that they're equal. The alternate hypothesis is P1 is less than P2. Let's see which answer in the homework corresponds to that. So in the homework, they're equal it looks like A is the hypothesis that they're equal, and H1, P1 less than P2. Let's go for letter A there. Nice work. Okay. So next question, the test statistic. Okay, here's where we're going to have to go to the calculator and do a hypothesis test. So on the calculator, I'm going to stat tests. This is a 2-prop Z test. Okay, and the X1 and the N1 are the numbers from the cars, which I wrote down 236 out of 2197. 236 out of 2197. And then the second proportion, the X2 and N2, is from the trucks, which I wrote down 57 of 391. And the form of the alternate hypothesis was P1 less than P2, which is that one. And when I calculate, I get, there's my test statistic and p-value. So the test statistic Z is that negative 2.2057, and the p-value, which I'm sure they're going to ask for, 0.0137. I hope that's enough decimal places. So let's go back to the homework question. So in the homework question, the test statistic to 2 decimal places, negative 2.21, I guess. So that's negative 2.21. Okay. The p-value, they want 3 decimal places, 0.014. 0.014. Nice work. Okay, so now let's go back. So let's go back to the setup. So the null hypothesis was not from the original claim, and the p-value was less than alpha. What was the p-value? 0.013. and the significance was 0.015. So if I go to the hypothesis testing, so it was not from the original claim, reject H null. So the conclusion here is this one, not from the original claim, reject H null. The sample data support the claim. Let's see which choice does that. The sample data support the claim. We rejected H null. There's sufficient evidence to support the claim, so that's D. We rejected H null because P was less than alpha. Let's check that one. Excellent. Okay. And here comes the part they want us to do a confidence interval for this. Now, the fact that it was a 5% significance and a one-tail test kind of tells us what confidence level to use for the confidence interval. So let me just do a quick, let's see if I can clear this, clear canvas. Ah, good. Okay, so the confidence level alpha, the confidence level alpha was 0.05, and it was a one-tail test. Now, the confidence level from that for a one-tail test, the confidence level for a one-tail test, I give a little bit more explanation about this in the notes that I posted, is going to be 1 minus 2 alpha, which in this example is 1 minus 2, that's supposed to be a 2 times 0.05, which is 1 minus 2 times 0.05 is 0.1. So that's 1 minus 0.1 is 0.9. So that's the confidence level we want to use for this test is 0.9. And let's see, so if I go back to the calculator, and this is going to be a stat tests, it's going to be 2prop_z int, which I think I have to arrow down to get to somewhat. There it is, 2prop_z int, whoops, 2prop_z int, and I think the x1 and the n1 are still left over from the hypothesis test, so those are the correct numbers that are still there. I have the correct confidence level, 0.9, and then when I go down to calculate, I'll get the limits that I want for this confidence interval, enter, and it's negative 0.0697, negative 0.0697, and negative 0.0071. So that's a 90% confidence level for the difference between these two proportions. So if I go back to the homework question, I wrote those down. So it's how many, they want 4 decimal places. So this is negative 0.0697, negative 0.0697, and the upper one was negative 0.0071, negative 0.0071. Let's check that. Thank God, okay. And so then they ask, you see, now the thing is that because the confidence interval does not contain 0, that means that there is a difference between these two proportions. So because the confidence interval limits do not contain 0, there is a significant difference between the two proportions, and there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that the trucks violate the laws at a higher rate than the passenger cars. Check answer. Excellent. Okay.